The sound of a Lamborghini Huracán Performante at 8 a.m. on a Sunday in suburban Phoenix is not a subtle one. It's a guttural Italian snarl that cracks the desert silence like a whip. As I guided the matte gray beast into my driveway at the ridges at Silverleaf, I saw the curtains twitch in the house next door. Karen Pemberton was watching. She was always watching. I killed the engine, and the sudden quiet was almost as loud as the car had been. I ran a hand over the carbon fiber steering wheel and smiled. This was my reward. 3 years of 90-hour weeks, sleeping on office couches, missing birthdays and anniversaries, all to get my fintech startup off the ground. 6 months ago we'd gone public. The IPO made me, Alex Chin, a very rich man on paper. The Lamborghini? That was the first tangible screw you to the struggle. My little slice of joy. Karen Pemberton, however, did not believe in joy. She believed in HOA Rule 47, subsection C, which dictated the acceptable sheen of driveway sealants. She believed in Rule 12, regarding the precise angle at which trash cans could be presented to the street. She believed, most fervently, in Rule 8, no commercial vehicles overnight. My Lamborghini, with its matte finish that was technically non-regulation gloss, was, in her eyes, a rolling declaration of war. I'd lived next to Karen for 2 years. She was a retired school principal in her late 60s, with a helmet of blonde hair, a permanent scowl, and a terrier named Mr. Wiggles who she walked 6 times a day, presumably to maximize her opportunities for neighborhood surveillance. She'd hit me with HOA violations for everything from a slightly yellowing lawn, it was Bermuda grass, it goes dormant in winter, to having a package delivered on a Saturday. I'd paid the fines, smiled politely, and retreated into my work. I figured it was easier to just not engage. A Lamborghini, I quickly learned, was engaging. Within an hour of parking it, a crisp, white envelope was taped to my front door. It wasn't from the HOA board. It was from Karen. A handwritten note on expensive, floral stationery. Alex, that ostentatious display of vulgarity in your driveway is a blight on our community's aesthetic. It violates the spirit and intent of the Ridge's design guidelines. I expect it to be removed by morning. If not, I will be forced to raise this issue at the next board meeting. Regards, Karen Pemberton, Architectural Review Committee Chair. I laughed out loud. The spirit and intent clause. The nuclear option for HOA busybodies everywhere. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. The car was legally parked in my own driveway. There was nothing she could do. I was wrong. The next morning, I was woken by a call from my security company. My driveway camera had detected motion. I pulled up the app on my phone, still half asleep, and watched the footage. There she was. Karen Pemberton in a vibrant turquoise tracksuit, marching up my driveway. She wasn't carrying Mr. Wiggles. She was carrying her car keys. She stopped in front of the Lamborghini, stared at it for a long moment, then walked around to the driver's side. She didn't try to open it. Instead, she fumbled with her keys, dropping them once before apparently finding the right one. She then proceeded to drag the key along the entire length of the car, from the front headlight all the way to the rear taillight. The paint, a custom $15,000 matte finish, was obliterated in a single jagged line of bare metal and scratches. I shot out of bed, pulled on jeans, and ran outside barefoot. But I was too late. Her car, a pristine white Lexus SUV, was already backing out of her driveway. She paused, rolled down her window, and gave me a sweet, poisonous smile. "Oh, Alex dear," she called out. "I hope you have comprehensive insurance. That car of yours is such an eyesore. I was just trying to discourage you from parking it there. You really should be more careful about where you leave your things." And with that she drove off. I stood there, speechless, staring at the brutal scar on my $500,000 dream. The key had dug deep. The door panel would need to be completely replaced. We're talking 6 figures in damage. Totaled wasn't the right word, but the car's value had just plummeted. It was a vandalized vehicle now, its history forever stained. The rage was a cold, hard ball in my stomach. But I didn't scream. I didn't pound on her door. I did something much more satisfying. I went inside, made a cup of coffee, and waited for the security company to email me the full high-definition video. I spent the morning on the phone. First, I called my insurance company and filed a claim, providing them with the video. The agent was stunned. "Sir, you have her on camera in high definition keying your car? This is an open-and shut case of felony criminal damage." Next, I called the Scottsdale Police Department. An officer came by, watched the video, and his jaw dropped. "Mrs. Pemberton?" he said with a sigh of recognition. Apparently, she was known to them for frivolous noise complaints. He filed a report for criminal damage, a Class 3 felony in Arizona due to the value of the damage. The amount exceeded $10,000 by a catastrophic margin. Then, I made the most important call. To my lawyer, Sarah Jenkins. Sarah wasn't just any lawyer. She was a former federal prosecutor, a pit bull in pearls, and she handled my company's complex IP litigation. She was expensive, brilliant, and utterly relentless. I sent her the video. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Alex," Sarah said, her voice crisp. "Who is this woman?" The HOA Karen from next door. She hates my car. She just handed you her house on a silver platter. This isn't just vandalism. This is malicious destruction of property with clear premeditation. The note she sent you yesterday establishes intent. We're not just going after her for the repair costs. We're going after her for diminished value, for emotional distress, for punitive damages. We're going to make an example of her. But Sarah, she's just a retired school teacher. She lives in a nice house, but it's probably her only asset. She doesn't have this kind of money. Sarah chuckled, a low, dangerous sound. Alex, you're thinking like an engineer. I'm thinking like a lawyer. We don't need her to have money. We need her to have liability. And she does. It's called her homeowner's insurance. That's what it's for. And her policy is about to have a very, very bad day. We didn't file a lawsuit immediately. Sarah had a better idea. She called it the patience of the predator. First, the police arrested Karen. They came for her on a Wednesday morning in front of all her bridge club friends. The sight of her being led away in handcuffs, her helmet hair askew, was captured on a neighbor's Ring camera and spread through the neighborhood WhatsApp group like wildfire. Her humiliation was public and absolute. Then her insurance company, Allstate, got involved. They reached out to my insurance company to settle the property damage claim. My insurer, acknowledging the open and shut nature of the case, paid for the repairs up front, $87,000 for a new door, repaint, and calibration of the sensors. They then immediately subrogated the claim, meaning they went after Karen's insurance company to get their money back. This is where Sarah's plan kicked into high gear. She contacted Karen's insurance company directly, not to settle, but to inform them that we were preparing a separate civil lawsuit against their insured for damages far exceeding the repair costs. Your client didn't just damage a car, Sarah explained to the claims adjuster in a recorded call. She maliciously targeted my client's property after sending a threatening letter. This has caused my client significant emotional distress. He no longer feels safe in his own home. He's considering moving. The diminished value of the vehicle is substantial. We're preparing a demand package for $350,000. The insurance adjuster sputtered. $350,000? For a scratch. It's not a scratch. It's a felony. And it's your client's liability. You have a duty to defend her. We're happy to take this to trial. I have a 12-person focus group booked for next week to test our punitive damages argument. The video is very compelling. I doubt a Maricopa County jury will be sympathetic to a wealthy HOA bully who destroys a neighbor's property because she doesn't like the color. Karen was now in a nightmare of her own making. She was facing a felony charge which could mean prison time. And her insurance company, faced with a potential $350,000 payout plus their own legal fees, was not happy. They called her in for a coverage meeting. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall. They explained to her in simple terms that she had two options. Option A, they could fight the lawsuit, which would cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. If they lost at trial, they'd be on the hook for the full $350,000, which would likely exceed her policy limits, leaving her personally liable for the rest. Her house, her savings, her retirement, all on the line. Option B, she could authorize them to settle. But to settle, she would have to do exactly what I wanted. The terms were non-negotiable. Full restitution. Her insurance company would pay the full diminished value of the Lamborghini, which we had independently appraised at $110,000. They would also pay my legal fees, which were mounting by the hour. A public apology. This was my favorite part. Karen Pemberton had to write a letter of apology to me, which would be read aloud at the next HOA board meeting, with a copy distributed to every household in the Ridges. Resignation. She had to immediately resign from every HOA committee, including the Architectural Review Committee, and agree never to serve on any HOA board or committee in the state of Arizona again. No contact order. She was to have no further contact with me or my property. Her insurance company leaned on her hard. They threatened to drop her coverage entirely if she didn't settle. They painted a picture of financial ruin that was terrifyingly accurate. She had no choice. She folded like a cheap lawn chair. The monthly HOA meeting at the Ridges was usually a snooze fest, attended by a handful of retirees complaining about dog poop. The meeting after Karen's arrest was standing room only. People were crammed into the clubhouse, clutching glasses of cheap wine and whispering excitedly. The new board president, a quiet man named Mr. Henderson, called the meeting to order. After a few routine items, he cleared his throat. "We have one final item on the agenda," he said, looking uncomfortable. "A statement from a former member of our community." Karen Pemberton stood up. She looked like a ghost of her former self. The helmet hair was limp, the scowl replaced by a look of profound shame. She walked to the podium, clutching a piece of paper. The room fell silent. "To my neighbor, Mr. Alex Chin," she began, her voice trembling. "I am writing this letter to express my deepest and most sincere apologies for my actions on the morning of October 12th. What I did was wrong, illegal, and inexcusable. There is no justification for vandalizing your property. My behavior was born of a misguided and petty sense of entitlement, and I am deeply ashamed. I have caused you distress and financial harm, and for that I am truly sorry. I have resigned from all HOA positions and will be seeking professional help to address my behavior. I hope that in time, you can find it in your heart to forgive me. She looked up, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found me. I was leaning against the back wall, arms crossed. I gave her a small, polite nod. That was all the acknowledgement she was going to get. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. People were stunned. The tyrant had been toppled. The reign of Karen was over. After the meeting, people I'd never spoken to before came up to shake my hand. They clapped me on the back. "Good for you, Alex," they said. Someone finally stood up to her. Mr. Wiggles' dog Walker, a shy teenager, gave me a thumbs up. The total payout from Karen's insurance company was just over $400,000, covering the diminished value, legal fees, and a separate settlement for emotional distress. The criminal charges were dropped as part of the civil settlement, much to my lawyer's chagrin. "I wanted to see her in an orange jumpsuit," Sarah grumbled. But I was satisfied. Financial pain and public humiliation were a far more fitting punishment. Prison would have just made her a martyr in her own mind. I didn't sell the Lamborghini. I had it repaired by a specialist in Los Angeles who does work for movie studios. It's perfect now, perhaps even more precious to me because of the story attached to it. It's a reminder that bullies, no matter how petty, can be beaten if you have the right tools. Evidence, a good lawyer, and the patience to let the system work. Karen and her husband moved to a 55-plus community in Florida 6 months later. I heard through the grapevine that she got into a disagreement with their HOA about the color of their front door. Some things never change. As for me, I still drive my Lamborghini every Sunday morning. I park it right in the middle of my driveway. And every time I do, I look over at Karen's old house, now occupied by a nice young couple who think my car is awesome, and I smile. The moral of the story? Don't key a $500,000 car. You have no idea who you just messed with. He might just be a guy who worked too hard for his dream, or he might be a guy with a lawyer on speed dial and a security camera pointed right at your face. Either way, you're going to lose.